Let's go, Falcons! The start of Atlanta Falcons training camp has been anything but smooth, and flowery branches changes have fans excited. I'll give you the lowdown, so hit the like button and leave a comment. Rise up! Now, the roster is already shaking up in ways no one expected. 3 players have landed on the non-football injury list, a veteran defensive back has been released, and a highly anticipated young linebacker has returned from a devastating injury, ready to prove his worth. And while all this is happening, one name continues to steal the spotlight: Bijan Robinson, who is already putting defenders on the field and looking like a superstar destined to carry this offense. But let's not jump ahead just yet, because there's drama everywhere you look on this roster. The Falcons didn't just quietly shuffle depth players. No, they cut ties with Kevin King, a former second-round pick, just hours after the first training session. King, who played 15 games for Atlanta last season and was a reliable presence on special teams, now finds himself on the outside looking in. The 30-year-old cornerback, who once showed promise with the Green Bay Packers, never quite regained his stride after missing all of 2022 and tearing his Achilles in 2023. It's the kind of move that sends a clear message. This new regime under head coach Raheem Morris is not afraid to make bold roster decisions, and no veteran spot is safe. But that wasn't the only headline. Cobee Bryant, one of the most talked about undrafted free agents in recent memory, has been placed on the non-football injury list before even getting a chance to fight for his spot. And if you think this is just another camp body, think again. Bryant was one of the most sought-after UDFAs after the 2025 draft, and the Falcons fought hard to get him. Morris himself admitted that recruiting Bryant felt like convincing a high-profile college recruit to commit. "My kids know him," Morris joked earlier this offseason, highlighting just how much buzz surrounded the former Kansas star. But now, all that hype is on hold. Bryant's injury, which the team hasn't disclosed, means he could be forced to miss at least the first 4 games if he doesn't recover in time. It's a tough blow for a young player who many believed had a real shot at making the 53-man roster as an outside corner. Bryant isn't alone on the NFI list. Defensive tackle Laquelle London and linebacker Malik Verdon joined him, creating more questions than answers about Atlanta's depth, especially on defense. London had been a rotational piece in 2023 but saw no game action last season, while Verdon, an undrafted free agent out of Iowa State, was already considered a long shot to make the squad. Still, losing depth this early in camp isn't ideal, particularly for a team that desperately needs to solidify its defense. Speaking of defense, there is some good news, great news, actually. Bralen Trice, the Falcons' 2024 third-round pick, is finally back after tearing his ACL in last year's preseason. And let me tell you, this might be the biggest storyline for the defense all summer. Trice isn't just any young linebacker. He led all of college football in pressures for 2 consecutive seasons at Washington, totaling an absurd 149 pressures in just 2 years. The Falcons had one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL last season, managing only 10 sacks in 11 games before their bye week. Adding Trice to that mix could be a game-changer, and head coach Raheem Morris couldn't hide his excitement. "I was so fired up about Bralen last year, and it is the same thing this year," Morris said, clearly ready to unleash Trice on opposing quarterbacks. And then there's Bijan Robinson. If you're looking for a player who defines what this team wants to be, it's him. On the very first day of camp, Robinson was putting on a show, leaving defenders like Natrone Brooks and J.D. Bertrand in the dirt with his agility and explosiveness. Coming off a sophomore season where he racked up 1,866 total yards and 15 touchdowns, Robinson looks even better, which is a scary thought for the rest of the NFC South. His teammates can't stop raving about him either. Rookie linebacker Jalen Walker summed it up in one word: freak. Drake London simply said, "That's who we expect him to be," while new starting quarterback Michael Penix Jr. added, "He's real important. He helps with everything. He helps open up the pass game. The things he can do with the ball in his hands is insane." This is the kind of energy that has Falcons fans dreaming big, but there's still a lot left to unpack, especially when it comes to what these roster moves mean for the upcoming season and which players might step up in these suddenly open depth chart battles. I'll dive deeper into that in the second half of this breakdown, including how these moves might affect Week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and who's emerging as a surprise name to watch in camp. But first, I want to hear from you. What do you think about these moves? Was cutting Kevin King the right call? Are you worried about Cobee Bryant's injury, or do you think he'll still make the roster? And how excited are you about Bralen Trice and Bijan Robinson this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And this is where things start getting even more intriguing, because every one of these moves tells us something about what the Falcons are planning. And it's becoming clear that Raheem Morris and his staff are shaping this team to be faster, younger, and more aggressive. Kevin King's release, for example, wasn't just a procedural move, it was a statement. The Falcons are no longer holding onto veterans for depth if they don't see them as part of the future. Sure, there's always a chance King could be brought back later, but the fact that he was cut after just one practice shows how serious the competition is. Younger corners like Clark Phillips III and D. Alford now have an even bigger chance to lock up meaningful roles, and with Jeff Okudah already expected to be one of the starters, the team is betting on youth to solidify the secondary. And then there's Cobee Bryant's situation, which adds another layer of suspense to camp. Fans had been eager to see how Bryant's college dominance would translate to the NFL, especially after Morris called him the most famous undrafted player I've ever been around. The Falcons went all in to get him after the draft, skipping corners in the earlier rounds because they believed they could land Bryant in free agency. That tells you how much they value him. Now, the big question is whether he can get healthy in time to even compete. Starting the season on the NFI list would be a huge setback, and it could open the door for another young corner to steal the opportunity that was practically being handed to Bryant just a few weeks ago. On the defensive line, Laquale London's injury complicates things as well. He was expected to compete for rotational snaps, and now the team may need to look at other options to keep the interior defensive front fresh. Malik Verdon, meanwhile, was already a long shot, but his absence means fewer bodies to evaluate at linebacker, which might give unexpected chances to players who weren't on anyone's radar. This is where training camp battles really get interesting. One player's misfortune becomes another's shot at making the roster. But while injuries and roster cuts dominate headlines, the real optimism is coming from players who are on the field, and Bralen Trice is at the center of it. His return could completely change how this defense attacks. Last season, the Falcons lacked any consistent pass rush, often giving opposing quarterbacks way too much time to throw. Trice's college numbers show that he's not just a good pass rusher, he's elite at generating pressure, something this defense desperately needs. If he can stay healthy and live up to his college reputation, he might be the missing piece that finally allows Atlanta to get after quarterbacks consistently, and that could be the difference between another mediocre season and a playoff run. And while the defense is working to find its identity, the offense already has its star. Bijan Robinson isn't just living up to the hype, he's exceeding it. His teammates talk about him like he's already one of the best players in the league, and the fact that Michael Penix Jr. is emphasizing how Robinson opens up the passing game tells you how valuable he is to this offense. If Robinson can continue to dominate on the ground and create mismatches in the passing game, the Falcons might finally have the balanced attack they've been searching for. The first week of camp isn't even over, but the tone is already set. This is a team that's demanding production, rewarding competition, and refusing to settle for anything less than players who can contribute right now. Week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is still weeks away, but battles are being won and lost every day in camp, and the players who seize this moment will define what this Falcons team becomes in 2025. Now I need to hear from you again. Do you believe Bralen Trice can transform this defense? And do you think Bijan Robinson could lead this team to the playoffs if he keeps playing at this level? Drop your predictions in the comments, and if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss anything this training camp. Go Falcons!